I fought in the June 16 uprising in 1976. We used stones to fight. At music of steel pulse, it was like finding AK-47s.
So the music a bubble, and I not looking for trouble, yet they come.
Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. And in today's video, we're taking a look at how Steel Pulse took British reggae to the world. Jamaica, as we all know, is the birthplace of reggae music, an infectious sound that emerged from the vibrant and gritty inner city ghettos of Kingston in the late 1960s and took the world by storm in the late 1970s. Aside from Jamaica, the country that truly launched reggae into the world's consciousness and promoted it in a way that it caught on globally was Great Britain. Jamaicans had been emigrating to the UK in significant numbers since the late 1940s to take up menial jobs and help in the recovery post-World War II. And by the 1960s, the Jamaican community, with its considerable numbers, were importing Jamaican music from the homeland. The music by that time was reggae music, and over time, it began to be enjoyed not only by the Jamaicans, but also began to resonate heavily with the English working class people, and over time, reggae worked its way into the fabric of British culture. Homegrown British reggae bands like the Rudies, the Music Doctors, and the Cimarrons emerged and delivered quality music, but they received very little respect as they were all regarded as second-rate, with records imported from Jamaica considered to be the preferred source for authentic reggae. But by the 1970s, a new group of reggae British bands were gathering steam and were about to change that narrative. These new cats were uncompromising, brilliant musicians and were creating music that reflected true life experiences in the streets, and as a result, their music appealed heavily to the younger population. These new bands included Aswad, Matumbi and Steel Pulse. While all these new bands inspired a solid fan base at home, it was Steel Pulse in particular that smashed the idea that British bands couldn't make reggae music good as anything that could come out of Jamaica. Steel Pulse were the cutting edge, they were militant, and their instrumentals were unbelievably brilliant. Plus, their lyrics were confrontational and politically charged in ways that the world hadn't seen before. It was this wicked combination that took Steel Pulse from Handsworth, Birmingham to the globe and showed everybody, whether we liked it or not, that British bands were legit. After practicing for years in the basement of lead singer David Hines' father's basement, Steel Pulse emerged in 1975, playing gigs in local pubs in Birmingham before releasing their first single in 1976 under the London-based Concrete Jungle Records. The next year, they released their second single, Naya Love, which was a breakout success for the boys and went straight to the top of the UK reggae charts. This not only took the band to national reckoning, but led to their first trip into the global market. Burning Spear was undertaking his first tour of the UK, and Steel Pulse was selected to be an opening act in October of 1977. After delivering what can only be described as wicked back-to-back performances, they were noticed and signed up by Island Records, the same label that had made Bob Marley and the Wailers an international star. The label was certain that Steel Pulse were as tight as any other group they had ever signed, but the question arose as to whether a British band could replicate the success of the Jamaican acts on their roster. The label's strategy was to choose a producer for the band that had the skills to harness their sound and make it as appealing as possible to an international market without eroding any of their essence. Island Records appointed ace Jamaican producer Carl Peterson. It was a match made in heaven as the band was excited to work with him. The band loved the sound he had crafted for their idols like Burning Spear and Bob Marley's Exodus album. Their first single, Ku Klux Klan, was a hard-hitting taste of what was to come and astonished listeners when it was released in March of 1978. Behind the scenes at Island Records, it was all joy as the band clicked with Peterson like bread and jam. The boys had plenty of respect for him, and he reciprocated by listening to their ideas and by tightening loose ends, inspiring them to do better, and generally bringing out the best in the band. They went to work immediately on material for their debut album and recorded 8 magnificent songs that made up the Handsworth Revolution album, which hit the streets in July of 1978 to massive critical acclaim. It shot up to number 9 on the UK album charts in just 10 days and sold 250,000 copies. The title Handsworth was in honor of the district in Birmingham where the band had come from. The guys poured out all their passion and experiences growing up in Black Britain in the 1970s and created an aggressive, confrontational statement that's a seminal album in reggae history. And also, their performance of the track Ku Klux Klan in Hoods was provocative and got the world's attention. If the buzz from their debut album was a lift-off, their selection to be opening act for Bob Marley and the Wailers during the Kaya tour is what took them into orbit as international reggae stars. The European leg of the Kaya album tour was an 8-venue affair that kicked off with an incredible concert at the new Bingley Hall in Stafford, as well as 3 sold-out concerts in Paris, dates in Ibiza, Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Brussels. The band stole the show during the European leg of that tour, and if not for the overwhelming mega-stardom of the main act, they might have even overshadowed Bob Marley. The popularity the band amassed during the tour led to them enjoying their own sold-out concerts in future tours of their own. Of course, it didn't hurt that Bob Marley publicly called Steel Pulse his favourite band. On the strength of Handsworth Revolution and their roaring success, they were booked for tours of Europe and the US. They knew they were big in Europe, but had no idea how much in demand they were in the US. They played countless shows in America for 2 years, and in that time, they weren't aware that their music had also penetrated the birthplace of reggae music, or that they had broken a glass ceiling for British reggae until they were invited to perform at the 1981 annual Reggae Sunsplash in Montego Bay, Jamaica, the first UK band to receive that honour. And they just didn't give a good show, but totally wowed the audience, and were regarded as one of the high points in a show that had the likes of Black Uhuru, Gregory Isaacs, and Third World performing on the same day. After returning from Jamaica, the guys went to work on their 4th album in 1982. They had parted ways with Island Records, but still engaged Carl Peterson to produce their new album. And in just 25 days, they cranked out 10 magnificent songs that made up arguably their greatest album, titled True Democracy. After 40 years, it's been rated by many reggae critics and writers as their best album ever and one of the greatest albums in reggae history. It's without a doubt their signature album and featured the guys at the absolute top of their game, with tracks like the spiritual guide Chant a Psalm, the repatriation anthem Rally Round, and Blues Dance Raid, which was a protest song against the steady harassment of sound system parties by the British police. The album stunned the world, and Jamaica inclusive, earning the band another invitation to the Reggae Sunsplash in 1982. From that time on, their status as a global act was not in dispute. They got signed to Elektra Records in 1984 and released their next 3 albums under the label, including their 1985 album Babylon the Bandit, which also made history as it won the Grammy Award for Best Reggae Album in 1987, the first non-Jamaican act to bag the award. The band has since amassed countless awards, Grammy nominations, and non-stop sold-out concerts all over the world. And not to mention the amazing honor of being the first reggae band to perform at the inauguration ceremony of a President of the United States when they were invited for the 1993 inauguration of US President Bill Clinton. Since the debut of Steel Pulse, there have been other British acts that have gotten international acclaim and have performed at the Reggae Sunsplash, and there's definitely more respect and acceptance of British reggae on the world stage. And it all began with Handsworth's Finest and their breakthrough album in 1978. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.